Hi, I'm Jose with LetzRoll Off-Road. Today we're going to take you through a couple of major components that you're going to want to look over after a day of wheeling, whether you're using and abusing it or just cruising it. You want to check your suspension components because if any of those come loose, you could potentially have a bolt fall all the way out. And if that happens, you're going to have a catastrophic failure, which is going to lead to more money in the end. So the first component we're going to be looking at today is going to be the hardware that holds the shocks in. You don't want to lose your shock hardware because that's what helps with your ride quality. And at the end of the day, you don't want to ride home with a rough ride. So you have two bolts that hold your shocks in. There's going to be one down here at the axle and there's going to be one up above on the frame. Pro tip, you're going to want to flip this bolt around if it isn't already. So the threaded side comes towards the tire, because if it's not, it could be drug on rocks, which ruins the threads, and you could have a hard time getting the bolt out and or have to cut it out. The next component we're going to be looking at is going to be your sway bar links. Your sway bar links also help with your ride quality. Your sway bar link is located right here just above the shock, mounted on the axle, and then it mounts onto the actual sway bar itself. Moving on, we have our track bar right here. The track bar is what helps keep your axle centered under the Jeep. So your track bar is going to be mounted on the axle and the frame side as well with two bolts. There's going to be one up here with the frame and one down here with the axle. Now moving on, we're going to look at your control arms. If your control arms, which are located on your axle, you have 4 of them. Most vehicles are going to be equipped with them. There's going to be a lower and an upper. These are good to check because they're also a major factor of holding your axle squared under your Jeep. So there's going to be a bolt located on the frame right here and one located on the axle. If you have aftermarket control arms, most of them have a jam nut. If the jam nut isn't tight, the threads in the control arm are going to have wiggle room and it's going to be able to flex a little bit. So you could potentially rip that out of the control arm and then you'll have to buy new control arms, which everyone knows is not cheap. Now we're going to move on to looking at your drive shafts. Your drive shafts are going to be mounted on your axle and your transfer case. You want to make sure that the drive shaft is going to be fastened securely to the yoke, because if it is a rotating component and if it comes off, it's going to cause a lot of damage that you don't want to pay for in the end. Moving to the front, a lot of the components are going to be the same. You have upper and lower control arms, you have the drive shaft, you have these jam nuts on the control arms, sway bars, and a couple other things that we're going to need to look at that we didn't mention in the rear. The first one we're going to be looking at today is going to be your steering. You have a drag link and a tie rod that move your front tires side to side as you steer the wheel. They're going to be mounted on the knuckle. Most setups are going to have a cotter pin to secure that nut down so it doesn't loosen up, but not all of them do. Some of them have a nylock nut, which the nylock can wear out and loosen up over time. Just like the rear, you're going to have a couple of components that are going to be similar, like the sway bar links, the track bar, the upper and lower control arms, and you have all these jam nuts to check. So that concludes your basic nut and bolt check that you should be doing before and after you go wheeling. If you need any help with it, call us over at LetzRoll Off-Road or just bring the Jeep on by the shop and we'll get it taken care of for you. Thanks for joining us today and we'll see you on the trail.